You're watching Camnet TV, not just another channel. Welcome to Camnet TV main news with Banda Tandiwe, the headlines. Nervous MUMBA punches holes in the legitimacy of the just-ended LUKASHYA parliamentary by-election. 11-year-old girl narrates how her 76-year-old grandfather has continued to sexually abuse her. CHISHIMBA KAMBWILI accuses Magistrate David SIMUSAMBA of ill-treating him. And in our international news, BBC uncovers what led to a blast that killed 23 people in Nigeria in March. And in our sports news, Nkana refutes media speculations that Mupani has terminated its sponsorship deal with the club. Do join us with the details after this break.
Msika is here. We have you all covered with just 150 kwacha. You can advertise every day from 17 hours to 18 hours. For a 30-second ad, get the benefit of selling your products and services on Msika. For more details, call our marketing department on +260 953 995099 +260 962 444 726 or +260 971 177 467. Email us on info@camnettvafrica.com. Terms and conditions apply.
Are you a filmmaker? Well, you are exactly what we are looking for.
Camnet TV is calling on local filmmakers. For more details,
You can visit our headquarters in Ibex Hill, next to Hilltop Hospital.
contact us on
0962 444 726. Camnet TV.
not just another channel.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with us to present the news. My name is Banda Tandiwe. The Electoral Commission of Zambia, ECZ, says it has taken note of the concerns raised by political players on the modalities being put in place to allow prisoners to vote in 2021 general elections and how political parties will conduct campaigns in prison facilities. ECZ Chief Electoral Officer Patrick Shindano says the Commission will soon share guidelines with various stakeholders concerning the voting process and other related procedures for the prisoners. Mr. Shindano disclosed this will help fully understand how the process will be done following various concerns on the procedure requirements. He said this during the launch of the online pre-registration of voters. He adds that the Commission is committed to ensure the process to incorporate prisoners to vote in 2021 August general elections is done in a credible manner.
We will not be able to pre-register online. What happens to them? That was also alluded to in the chairperson's remarks and indeed in my remarks, is that they need not worry if you do not register pre-online and are unable to register pre-online, you can still go to a static registration center that will be established at all district centers or civic centers, whichever the case that will be. In all the districts, there will be one. In addition to that, you are also going to have the mobile registration exercise. So those that do not pre-register online, they can still do that. But there is an advantage of pre-registering online that you spend little time. You spend less than 5 minutes. The only thing that you'll be able to do in the registration center is to basically verify your details by the registration officer, capture your biometrics, and be issued with a voter's card, and off you go with your business. So it quickens the process, but also you realize that we are in a COVID environment. What this does is that it reduces the contact time both in terms of our staff, but also the general public. And it's one of the measures we're trying to enhance in terms of how quickly we can process those that come for registration. So it's advisable that you do that and take full advantage of the platform. Time period is too short. As a commission, we have done our work very thoroughly, and we believe that the time period provided for is sufficient and does allow for us to capture all the required numbers. We did undertake better testing. As As you are fully aware, two better tests.
An 11-year-old girl has narrated to Camnet TV News how her 76-year-old grandfather has continued to defile her whenever he has a chance to do it. The girl says despite several pleas with him to stop his actions, her grandfather has not stopped. The young girl says as a result of the continued sexual abuse, she has become emotionally, physically and mentally disturbed, especially that her own guardian is the one behind the evil act. Miriam Kayamba now gives us the details in this report.
August ndipo mnenzana nuza tibwera venene nzova kanira futa nuza bwera nzova kanira kachi number 39 independence na bwana vomera.
This is a sad story of an 11-year-old girl of Lusaka's Kanyama compound who now seek for justice after being a victim of continued sexual abuse by a 76-year-old grandfather. The victim was in grade 7 at a named school in Lusaka, narrates how her own grandfather would call her to his room and demand for sex when his wife denies him of his conjugal right.
Wenzeri
kuti pamenzo kuzaidi
kubed ine nabwera kuja kuli wambuya kwa mene wamene wenzonkala nabwera nshinka fana like 3 years so ndipo mnenje nabwera kuno kashi nisiniza vamrenjo panga pende venza gambe tsanangana wanankala wanasunga wanambivi wazukulu wambivi.
In a quiet and soft voice, she told this reporter what would have been going on in the mind of her grandfather, who is alleged of defiling her.
Nabona ndoja waticho.
Suna uze wantu wa kunyumba?
Nabona uza watina na tuwashani ufuna yabe mkanuje kwa wambuya wakazi. Kutuwa wauja mpia muna reke vamene wachito. Ndiva mneze nabona wauza wasa. Wenaboa kabati first nijando wauza. Ndia pa wasapa nabo wauza.
So kwa mwana wauza mpishani vina kungapu?
Wenaboa kabati ambia wako funga shiva inde kupolisi.
Meanwhile, her class teacher, who took up the matter and reported it to the police, says after confronting the victim's family, they started accusing him of the act.
Just that I discovered to say that the performance of my pupil has gone low. So I was very much worried because she's in an examination class. So I told her to say what is the problem in the presence of the friends in class. So she started crying. Then when I saw that she's crying, I had to call her to go in the office. Then she came in the office, she started explaining. So after explaining, I was told to say that I shouldn't reveal this to anyone. 2 days passed. Then she came back again saying, Pastor, that issue which you told me, my grandpa is still insisting. He doesn't let me be. When I ask him to say that, why don't you do this to your wife? Then he was like, my wife refuses this. Then that's how now I started recording our conversation between me and her. And now, yesterday, those people, they had to say that, no, there is this at hand. And I approached them to say that, no, what you are doing is very bad. You don't have to do this. Now you are scaring us. So now when they heard that, they came early in the morning and they even started threatening. We are going to twist this matter. It is you, the teacher, who is sleeping with that girl. Then I was, no, well and good. If I'm the one who is doing that to that child, let me be punished.
The 76-year-old culprit is said to be on the run after the matter came to light. The matter has since been reported to the police. Miriam Kayamba reporting for Camnet TV News in Lusaka.
The Movement for Multi-Party Democracy, MMD, has described the just-ended LUKASHYA parliamentary by-election as lacking the basic tenets of free and fair elections. Speaking at a media briefing on Monday morning, Dr. MUMBA explained that the LUKASHYA by-election witnessed widespread violence, electoral malpractices and other electoral abuses. Dr. MUMBA states that in a normal democratic state, the election should have been halted by the Electoral Commission of Zambia. Meanwhile, Dr. MUMBA has observed that the electoral commissions in Africa have become a source of political instability, as they are the ones now deciding on behalf of the citizens who should be president and who should not be. Let's get the details in this report.
The Movement for Multi-Party Democracy, MMD, under the leadership of Party President Nevas Mumba, says the just-ended LUKASHYA parliamentary by-election was not free and fair, as it lacked democratic tenets.
A senior member of the Patriotic Front, who is also a committed Christian, came to see me at midnight. He looked worried and uncomfortable. He told me to the face that Patriotic Front, under normal circumstances, stands no chance of winning this election, as there is no goodwill on the ground. A decision has therefore been made to rig the election. He confirmed that the pre-marked ballots had arrived in Kasama. He also...
Dr. Mumba says the election in LUKASHYA was over-rigged, especially that at a named polling station where his party's candidate and his entire family voted from only managed to get 2 votes.
How can our candidate get 2 votes at his polling station where he voted for himself? His wife was there, his children were there, he's a pastor of the church, and the church members went with him to vote at the polling station, and when they counted the votes, there were 2 votes, creating a crisis in the home as to whether the children actually supported him. But I want you to know this did not only happen there. In many, many polling stations, not only MMD, UPND as well, in 6 of them got 0 votes in polling stations. With their agents there, 2 agents each, at least we should get 2, but they over-rigged. And this is what I wanted to say to whosoever rigged this election. You overdid it. You over-rigged. Even those who rigged in the past, they measured the rigging. But you have over-rigged to the extent that even your own people were scared.
The MMD president has since described the LUKASHYA by-election as being illegitimate.
Based on all these and many other irregularities, the ECZ should have suspended this election. It is an illegitimate election, and the outcome is also illegitimate. It's for this reason that the MMD cannot, on moral grounds, congratulate our colleagues in the Patriotic Front on their presumed victory in the last elections.
He wonders why the people of Kasama never celebrated.
Those of us who were in Kasama when the election was read out, the results, the PF wanted to celebrate through the Kasama town, but no one was celebrating. Kasama was quiet. Kasama was shocked at what had come out from LUKASHYA. And the election celebration was only by pockets of the PF people. So this election result and the celebration belongs to the Patriotic Front and not to the people of Zambia. They keep saying the numbers speak because you manipulate numbers. We don't want to hear the voice of numbers. We want to hear the voice of the Zambian people.
Dr. Mumba has further observed that electoral commissions in Africa have become a source of political conflicts in the continent.
It is a proven fact that electoral commissions in Africa are the source of conflict and national instability. A few decades ago, coup d'etats were responsible for illegitimate takeovers of governments. The AU, however, addressed this matter adequately, and coups are no longer a fashionable course of action. However, the new juntas of keeping ruling parties in government against the wish of the people are electoral commissions across the continent.
He has meanwhile emphasized that his party will not petition the election, considering that Parliament will be getting dissolved in 8 months' time. Kalan Muchima reporting for Camnet News in Osaka.
on how a named political party intends to rig the 2021 general elections. Dr. MUMBA has announced that the named political party has engaged an information technology IT specialist from South Africa to hack into the Electoral Commission of Zambia ECZ server to manipulate figures. He has, however, stated that at an appropriate time, he will be able to give full details on the matter. Let's get the details in this report.
That we are aware that an IT center has been set up here in Lusaka, which will permanently hack into the ECZ server to manipulate the numbers in the 2021 election. We are following very closely as to how the recruited South African IT guru, whose name I know, shall achieve this goal. The good news is that we know where these facilities are and who is responsible for these facilities. Very expensive investment. And ECZ will be connected to that center in order for them. That is why they have said they want the results to come straight from the polling stations to ECZ. Then they will hack into the ECZ server. They'll be receiving real-time submissions of election results. That those of you that are going to PVT will not have enough time or equipment to counter-check the information as it is coming out on the other side. And we are ready for that. We have got our own IT team that we are going to work with to make sure that we punch into this system and make sure that a free and fair election is made available for Zambians.
And in other news, the authentic advocates for justice and democracy have advised opposition members of parliament against walking out from the House when Bill 10 is tabled in the House for the second reading. Institution Public Relations Director Samuel Banda says this is the MPs that were not allowed to vote for by their people to be walking out of the House, but to fully represent them on matters that arise in the House. Mr. Banda has since called for sobriety and maturity during Bill 10 debates. He has further advised the opposition MPs to remain in the House so as to show cause why the bill should not be enacted as opposed to shunning the debate. Last week, the House voted to restore to the order paper of the Constitution Amendment Bill number 10 of 2019. Mr. Banda was speaking in an interview with Camnet TV News in Lusaka.
We wish to register our disappointment with UPND members of Parliament that walk away from their responsibility of debating in Parliament. We expect elected officials to debate bills in Parliament, including Bill 10. If there are any lacunas or inconsistencies, it's better, we feel that it's better that they debate within the confines of Parliament, because that's a mandate that the people who took them to Parliament gave them. We find such behavior, walking away from Parliament, counterproductive and a wanton disregard for the electorate who have placed confidence in their representatives. We believe every institution has its rules and regulations, and this display of insolence is unbecoming of honorable officials. It is in this vein that we are calling Speaker of Parliament, Dr. Honorable Machibini, of the National Assembly to invoke his powers and ensure that MPs are made answerable for their actions. We would like to warn the said members of Parliament that as citizens will rise against officials that are abrogating.
And in other news, the Zambian government says it's wary of the challenges Zambian youths are going through. Ministry of Labour and Social Security Services Permanent Secretary Chanda Kazia notes that youths, among other things, need jobs, which government is looking into. Mr. Kazia has meanwhile discouraged youths from allowing themselves to be used as tools of political violence by politicians, especially when the country is headed towards the 2021 general elections. Mr. Kazia was speaking during the Women and Youth Incubation Conference organized by Action Aid and the Federation of Free Trade Unions of Zambia, FFTUZ, in Lusaka. And speaking at the same event, FFTUZ President Chingate Misiska says youth unemployment continues to be topical issue in Zambia needing urgent attention. Meanwhile, Action Aid, through its country director LUKASHYA, says women participation in key national decision-making process still remains poor.
You must appreciate that government has given due priority to domestic development and empowerment and underscore the importance of this participation in national development. His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zambia, Dr. Lungu, has emphasized that Zambia's renaissance cannot be realized if adequate investment is not made to move that also the majority of the country's population. And as government, we find such initiatives very complementary, that empowerment efforts are being targeted at women and youth. As noted earlier, government is concerned with youth unemployment, and the challenge that requires attention by all stakeholders, especially the skills development through lifelong education.
Youth unemployment has become topical in our country. One possible way to address youth unemployment is to support young people in creating their own businesses. One of the reasons, I'll repeat that one of the possible ways to address youth unemployment is to support young people in creating own businesses. Studies have shown that youth have interest and potential of being self-employed. Youth are more likely to have a preference for self-employment than adults.
Some of the highlighted factors that inhibit youth and women's participation. Through reflection and sound action, we can improve the participation of women and youth in union education. Please let us all remember that no one should be judged, valued and discriminated based on their biological sex or gender identity.
Health Minister Dr. Chilufya has observed an improvement in the adherence of COVID-19 health guidelines among the Zambian citizenry. Dr. Chilufya has, however, urged the public to continue with the spirit, saying relaxing the measures is asking for an escalation in COVID-19 cases. Dr. Chilufya's observation comes in the wake of reduced cases of COVID-19 being recorded in the country. He announces that in the last 24 hours, the country has recorded 44 new cases picked from 8 districts out of 1,500 tests done, while the country has recorded 11 recoveries and 1 death, bringing the cumulative number to 14,175.
In the last 24 hours, 44 new cases of COVID-19 have been recorded out of 1,544 tests done. And these have been picked in 8 districts: Nakonde, Lusaka, Kasama, Chipata, Kabwe, Chisali, Solwezi, and Lundazi. So cumulatively, now Zambia has recorded 14,175 cases of COVID-19. The number of deaths have increased by 1. We got BID in Lusaka, and therefore that takes our number of deaths to 331. The number of patients in our health facilities continue to reduce, a good prognostic sign, but not an indication to relax. We now have a total of 6 patients at Lady Manawasa Hospital, with 3 on oxygen, 3 are stable. On the Cape Belt, we have 11 patients with 6 on oxygen. Central Province we have 2, and Eastern Province we have, Northwestern Province we have 3, while Eastern and Rwapula have 1 patient each. We have discharged 7 patients. We've discharged 7 patients from Lusaka, 9 patients from 7 from Lusaka, 7 from Muchinga, and 2 from Lusaka.
You're still watching Camnet TV, not just another channel. We do take our second set of commercials and do return with more news stories. Do stay with us.
The Food Reserve Agency, FRA, wishes to inform small-scale farmers countrywide that it has received funding from government and has since started buying maize, paddy rice and soya beans for national strategic food reserves. Farmers are therefore requested to deliver their crops to any nearest FRA satellite depot countrywide and note that payments are made upon delivery of their crops and processing of documentation as cash is available. FRA, securing national strategic food reserves, taking wealth to rural Zambia.
I have used Oracle Pure Glycerin for 2 years now. It has really worked for me. It has cleared all the black spots on my face. It has restored my skin beauty. It also smoothens the skin. Try Oracle Pure Glycerin for perfect skin. If it's not Oracle Glycerin, then it's not Pure Glycerin.
Stay home, stay safe. Times have changed. With the advent of the coronavirus, Lusaka Water Supply and Sanitation Company would like to advise its esteemed customers to avoid visiting crowded places. You don't have to move to pay your water bill. You can do it in the convenience of your home. You can pay your water bills through Zanaco Zapit, Stanbic Bank, Standard Chartered Bank, and FNB. You can also use Airtel, MTN, and Zamtel Kwacha mobile money transfer services. For any inquiries to report a fault, please contact our customer service on +260 211 251 571, +260 975 618 618, and toll-free line 5957, Zamtel only. You can also simply email customer service at lwsc.com. This public announcement is brought to you by the Lusaka Water Supply and Sanitation Company. Water is life. Sanitation is health.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with us. We continue with our news stories. Lusaka Principal Resident Magistrate David Simusamba Monday morning turned down National Democratic Congress leader CHISHIMBA KAMBWILI's junior lawyer's application for an adjournment in the case where he is accused of forgery, altering false documents, and giving false information to a public officer on account that Mr. KAMBWILI's lead lawyers were appearing before the Court of Appeal. But Magistrate Simusamba ruled that he will not entertain any further adjournments as he wants to bring the matter to a close. The accused person in this case, Mr. KAMBWILI, has however bitterly complained how Magistrate Simusamba is ill-treating him. Recently, the Judicial Complaints Commission, JCC, recommended for the removal of Magistrate Simusamba from his position as a judicial officer. More details in this report.
I will leave it to the people of Zambia. The way I've been treated in this matter all along is there for public to see what is going on. To me, is a very unfair way of doing things. And like I've complained to the Judicial Service Commission, I've complained to the Chief Justice over the behavior of this magistrate in my matter. But it appears nobody wants to do anything. It appears this magistrate is above the law. He cannot be controlled administratively or otherwise. I think this is damaging the reputation of the judiciary, and something has to be done very, very urgently about this matter.
The visibly frustrated National Democratic Congress leader CHISHIMBA KAMBWILI has accused the Lusaka's magistrate presiding over his case of being extremely unfair of how he has been handling his case. His reaction follows Magistrate David Simusamba's order to have the case closed after the accused lawyer failed to appear before court for continuation of defense as they were appearing before higher courts. In this case, the opposition leader, CHISHIMBA KAMBWILI, is charged with forgery, altering a false document and giving false information to a public officer. And speaking shortly after the case was adjourned, the NDC leader said he was shocked with the magistrate's decision to close the case before the defense officially closed it.
But I can only say that God, who we serve, lives. And all those who become unfair to others for the sake of their own reasons will face the wrath of God. I feel very sorry for some people, but I can only wish them well in their endeavors, because the God that we serve does not slumber, neither does he sleep. So I wish my younger brother, the Magistrate, all the best in his career as he dispenses justice.
Earlier, when the matter was called for continued defense, the counsel representing the accused applied for an adjournment on condition that the lawyers in conduct of this case were not before court. However, Magistrate SIMUSAMBA rejected the application and proceeded to close the case. In the last court session, the magistrate had granted the defense the last adjournment. The court has since set 12th October 2020 for judgment. Miriam Kaimba, reporting for Camnet TV News in Lusaka.
And in other news stories, Professional Teachers Union of Zambia Protu's General Secretary Kangwa Musenga has pleaded not guilty to the offense of assault slapped on him. Mr. Musenge is accused of assaulting his fellow union member Ngunga Tembo on the 25th of August 2020. When the matter came up before Lusaka Magistrate Rachel Sakala for plea, the accused denied the offense, however informed the court that he was in the process of reconciling with the complainant. The matter has since been adjourned to the 6th of October 2020 for trial or possible reconciliation. Zambia and Djibouti have pledged to deepen bilateral and multilateral relations and cooperations. Presenting his letters of credence to the President of Djibouti, His Excellency Ismail Omar Guelleh, Zambia's ambassador to Ethiopia, Emmanuel Mwamba, said Zambia recognizes that Djibouti holds one of the world's busiest shipping lanes of the world and plays a key role in promoting trade and commerce. Mr. Mwamba stated that His Excellency President Edgar Lungu has placed emphasis on economic diplomacy and the diplomatic role Djibouti was paramount to Zambia and Africa. And President Ismail Guelleh says he was looking forward to visiting Zambia. The head of state further said Africa continues to take pride in Zambia's first president and pioneer of the Organization of the African Unity and now African Union AU, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda. This is according to a statement made available to Camnet TV News by First Secretary Press and Tourism at the Zambian Embassy in Ethiopia. Let's get the details. Former Zambia Council for Social Development Executive Director Lewis Mwape has questioned the rationale behind the distribution of relief food to affected Zambians by the Disaster Management and Mitigation Unit DMMU. Mr. Mwape, who is now into governance activism, has noted with concern that DMMU seem to only disperse relief food to areas where by-elections are being held. And Mr. Mwape has also asked those calling for a commission of inquiry into the privatization of national assets to state where they have been when others have been calling for their accountability on various issues such as the procurement of ambulances, fire tenders, and what he terms as rampant corruption among few individuals in the government circles. Let's get the details.
How is it that disaster management only follows where there are by-elections?
A question has been posed, and the same question seems to be asked by many other stakeholders in the country.
Milimi was being distributed in the different wards by DMMU, Disaster Management and Mitigation Unit from the office of the Vice President.
Stakeholders have recently been raising concerns on why the Disaster Management and Mitigation Unit, DMMU, has taken a deliberate stance to distribute relief food to people in areas where by-elections are being held. Former Zambia Council for Social Development and now in governance activism, Lewis Mwape is among those not pleased with the prevailing circumstances.
The implementation of disaster management facilities and social protection facilities needs to be looked at. Because these are prone to abuse because of the way they have been structured. For example, there is no control that has been put. How does, for example, the DMMU decide we need to provide the disaster management facilities to the people that find themselves in any form of disasters, because we find that at certain times there are a number of areas that may require some help from disaster management, but you find that when the time for elections come, that's when disaster management also becomes very active. You saw a number of donations that were made in Mwansabombwe, the number of donations that were made in LUKASHYA, a number of donations that were made in a number of wards where elections took place.
Mr. Mwape calls for professionalism at DMMU.
So there is need for disaster management to be professional, to be ethical, and also to respond to the needs of the public and the needs of the citizens at the time of the disaster, and not to wait for a time when there is an election.
He says right now several places in Zambia are in need of mitigation, but government seem not interested unless if an election was to arise.
I know of areas like in Muingu, areas in Pososhi, but now that there is no election, there is no disaster. So there's need for government. If you remember, Pososhi Secondary School was part of it was on fire. But where is our disaster management to go and mediate that situation, address that situation? But we wait until there is a by-election. That's when we are going to find that there is some level of support to areas.
Mr. Mwape further answered those championing for a commission of inquiry in the privatization process where they have been, when others have for a long time now been calling for accountability from government in many areas.
Where those civil society, when there were some civil society who were demanding for accountability of in the ambulance scandals, accountability in the procurement of fire tenders, honestly, those are very fresh, and I think the civil society would do well to begin to hold those that hold power accountable when they are still in power. I think the issue to target individuals as a way of thinking of the campaigning them would not work.
Kalan Muchima reporting for Camnet News in Lusaka.
The National Action for Quality Education in Zambia, NARRATES, has supported the teaching of sexuality education in schools. NARRATES Executive Director Aaron Chansa says after a careful analysis of the comprehensive sexuality education framework and teaching manuals, they have found that this kind of education is very useful and important for the 21st century pupils. Mr. Chansa adds that there is nothing anti-Christian in these two documents like other stakeholders have been reviewing. He adds that this kind of education was prompted by extensive research data indicating alarming numbers of school dropouts due to early pregnancies amongst the primary and secondary schoolgirls. He disclosed that this is also important to state that before the Ministry of Education adopted the framework for sexuality education, the church and civil society organizations were part of the validation process. Let's get the details in this report.
As in a case, we are in strong support that comprehensive sexuality education should continue being taught in our schools. Our careful analysis of the framework for this kind of education reveals that there is nothing anti-Christian as purported by the Evangelical Fellowship of Zambia. We find this kind of education very, very important for the 21st century kind of learners. These learners are doing sex. They are seeing these things on TV and internet, and it's just very important that the school system should give them quality information, accurate information, so that they become more assertive, much more aware about their sexuality, and help to prevent early pregnancies and other very, very bad vices. So we find the proposal by EFZ very disturbing, and would want to challenge them to come out in the open and clearly point at issues they find to be anti-Christian, so that we can be able to deal with those issues as quickly as possible.
And in other news, the Zambia National Students Union, ZANASU, has expressed disappointment in the manner at which management of various learning institutions are demanding the students to pay 100% of school fees when they return to school. ZANASU acting president Stephen Kanyakula says the act will affect those coming from poor families, especially those from rural areas, as their parents may not have enough time to source for the funds. Mr. Kanyakula says most families have been affected financially, urging school authorities to exercise leniency on them.
We want to express our displeasure on management of various institutions who are demanding that students that are returning must pay the 100% fees for them to sit for examinations, and those who are returning students but not sitting for exams. This is uncalled for. We have these reports from the Copperbelt University and many other private and public institutions in Lusaka making this outrageous demand. We condemn this demand and call upon the Ministries of General and Higher Education to intervene in this matter and see how our students might be helped. What we must remember is that the effects of the coronavirus pandemic has not spared the financial position of families, especially when many businesses at home and abroad had been closed. Families do not have sufficient funds to provide the basic food for themselves and later on to pay the exorbitant tuition fees before their children can sit for examinations. Expecting parents and guardians to do so is closing the eyes to the reality that everyone has been financially affected and crippled by the pandemic. It is important, therefore, that ministers responsible for education take the lead in offering guidance to institutions to never, I repeat, to never demand the payment of 100% in fees as a condition for students to sit for the examinations and to return back to class.
Still to come is our international and sports news. I would urge you not to move an inch because we'll be right back.
To create a positive difference in people's lives, one must first understand the way people live. At Savenda, we're here for our community, our partners, and our future, as a nation and as a continent.
Back in 1997, we decided we were going to create this family journey into a bigger opportunity, and created a business called Savenda, which meant Save Nations to Develop Africa.
It's always important to give back to the people. The government cannot do everything, but as business entities, we'll be able to reach a lot of people.
From our humble beginnings in the telecoms and mining sectors to our work in energy and development projects, we know how important it is to be true to our roots.
Our services have to be diversified so that we don't depend on one income stream. Back in the village, I was growing up hunting and doing everything that a village boy would like to do. When you're hunting, you don't depend on one trap, for example. You have to have many traps. So those survival skills brought into the business created opportunities that we learned from a young age that you can't survive with just one product. Savenda Group involves Savenda Management, which is a consulting, Savenda Express, which is a corporate branding company, Savenda Electric, which is a manufacturer of energy-saving bulbs, Savenda General Insurance, which is a general insurance company, Savenda Fresh Produce, Cyber Africa, which is a center for just dealing with cyber security.
Now, Savenda is combining local knowledge with international expertise. It's time to be a part of Zambia's rising success and Africa's exciting future.
We are a gateway into Africa, and now we are praying with global companies who are coming to Zambia for opportunities and look for companies that are homegrown. And we are proud to be one of those.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with us. In our international news, the UK could see 50,000 new coronavirus cases a day by mid-October. Without further action, the government's chief scientific advisor has warned. Sir Patrick Vallis said this would be expected to lead to about 200 deaths per day a month after that. The briefing at Downing Street comes after as Prime Minister Boris Johnson considers whether to introduce further measures in England. On Sunday, a further 3,899 daily cases and 18 deaths were reported in the UK. Speaking alongside the government's chief medical advisor, Professor Chris Wilty, Sir Patrick stressed the figures given were not a prediction, but added, at the moment, we think the epidemic is doubling roughly every 7 days. And in other international stories, in March this year, 23 people lost their lives in a blast that rocked a girls' boarding school in Nigeria. The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, the country's state-owned oil firm, said the blast in March occurred as a result of a truck that hit gas cylinders near one of its petroleum pipelines. But the BBC Africa Eye's investigation indicates its explanation for the cause of the blast that disseminated over 100,000 square meters of the city is wrong. The BBC launched its own investigations and made these conclusions. Details in this report courtesy of the BBC.
An explosion in Lagos, Nigeria, shaking the city to its core.
Please, we need assistance.
At the time, almost 300 children were gathering for morning mass at Bethlehem Girls' College. The next second, the school was gone. Miraculously, not a single girl died in the blast. But the school's principal, Sister Henrietta Aluka, was one of 23 people killed in this explosion. As was this newlywed couple, Chisom and Emmanuel Uyamado, who died along with their unborn child. A pipeline operated by the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, or NNPC, the country's state-owned oil firm, had exploded, and the NNPC was quick to blame others. It said the blast was caused by a truck that hit gas cylinders stacked near the pipeline. It's a story that absolves the NNPC of responsibility and turns this blast into an unforeseeable accident. But is this story true? The explosion hit Shoba, a suburb of Lagos, at 8:56 a.m. on March 15, 2020. In the minutes that followed, everyone with a mobile phone began filming. But BBC Africa Eye found one video shot in the moments before the explosion. We tracked down the person who shot this clip and, using the metadata from her phone, confirmed that it was recorded at 8:51 a.m., 5 minutes before the blast. It shows that before anything had ignited, there was a major leak of vaporized liquid. It also gives us a precise location for that leak. This is the view captured on the girl's phone. If we move into Google Street View, we can see the roofline of a hostel belonging to the Bethlehem Girls' College. The leak was coming from behind the truck, precisely here. So what was leaking? The NNPC said the truck collided with gas cylinders stored at a gas processing plant located near their pipeline. But satellite imagery taken before the blast shows that there was no gas processing plant at this site. And this drone footage, shot less than 48 hours before the explosion, confirms that no gas cylinders were stored here. We also consulted 3 specialist engineers. They all confirmed that a leak of this intensity could not be coming from gas cylinders. Eyewitnesses back up that expert testimony. None of them mentioned gas cylinders or saw a collision, but 4 of them independently said the same thing.
Then I was coming back. That's when I said the white smoke. The white smoke was coming out.
From where was it coming out from?
From the ground.
The vapor was coming out of the ground. So if this vapor is not being released by gas cylinders, where is it coming from? We already know that the leak was here, behind the truck. Drone footage shows us that the source of this leak became the center of the blast crater. And if we look at satellite imagery taken back in 2009, we see something else. This is the trench dug to contain the NNPC's petroleum pipeline. And that pipeline runs right through the source of the vapor leak. So what could have caused the pipe to break? Drone footage shows the truck that was burned out in the blast. It stopped here on the unsurfaced road directly above the pipeline. At this same location, there's a dip in the land where rainwater has sometimes washed out some of the road's surface. And in the days before the blast, it rained enough to soften the eroded soil on which this heavily laden truck was about to stop. This could have pressured the pipeline to breaking points, releasing a cloud of vaporized flammable liquid that ignited. Dr. Ambisisi Ambituni, a Nigerian engineer and academic, has been warning about the danger for years.
We know the pipeline was designed in 1980. It was designed to last for only 25 years. Now the pipeline has been in existence for way over the lifespan of the pipeline. Now if you merge all these things together, a pipeline that is weakened in terms of its integrity, a cover of the pipeline that is eroded, and a truck driving on such an environment, clearly that is a recipe for disaster.
6 months after the blast, while the pipeline has been turned back on, the school remains in ruins. This new evidence challenges the NNPC's version of events and raises questions of who is really to blame for this tragic incident. The risks this pipeline carries into so many neighborhoods have not gone away. Underneath Nigeria's schools and homes, the oil keeps flowing.
We now take a look at our sports news. And in our sports news, Nkana Football Club has refuted information circulating on social media that the club's main sponsor, Mopani Copper Mines PLC, has terminated sponsorship for the Kitwe outfit. The club, in a statement through its president, Joseph Silwimba, says contrary to the information circulating, Mopani has actually supplemented Kana FC's funding for 2020 by giving the club additional support commencing the month of August 2020 after the club depleted its allocation for 2020 financial year midway. Silwamba further says Mopani is assisting the club to ensure that the 13-time Zambian Championship fulfill their 2020-2021 CAF Championship League engagements by ensuring that the necessary finances and other requirements are sourced. That sports news item brings us to the end of the main news. But before we go, a recap of the headlines. Nevis MUMBA punches holes in the legitimacy of the just-ended LUKASHYA parliamentary by-election. 11-year-old girl narrates how her 76-year-old grandfather has continued to sexually abuse her. CHISHIMBA KAMBWILI accuses Magistrate David SIMUSAMBA of ill-treating him. In international news, BBC uncovers what led to a blast that killed 23 people in Nigeria in March. And in sports news, Nkana refutes media speculation that Mopani has terminated its sponsorship deal with the club. The Camnet word verse of the day is coming from the book of 2 Corinthians 5 verse 15, and it reads, "And that he died for all, that they which live should not henceforth live unto themselves, but unto him which died for them and rose again." Thank you so much for joining me on the Camnet TV World News. My name is Banda Tandiwe. Thank you so much for watching Camnet TV, not just another channel.